Hi, I'm Jack Criss, and welcome to Greater Jackson Business Beat. Tonight, we are in Banner Hall, home of Lemuria Bookstore, one of the nation's outstanding bookstores located right here in Jackson, Mississippi. We're going to be talking to owner and operator John Evans. Come on inside, let's see what John has to say. And we're back inside Lemuria Bookstore, one of the best known and most well-known independent bookstores in the country. I'm Jack Criss, and we're joined with John Evans. John is the owner of Lemuria. And John, it's been 35 years. That's hard for me to believe as a Jackson native that Lemuria has been in existence that long.
How old are you?
Let's not talk about that on the air.
Well,
but I'm older than that. So.
But you've been coming here, I guess, since you were a little boy.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. And you started, it was the Quarter on Lakeland Drive, wasn't it?
Behind the old poets. And they moved to Highland Village when they opened the plaza.
Tell us about the old days. How many books did you have? How big was your space as compared to what you're in now here in Banner Hall?
We converted an apartment behind Poets between the best bar and the sexiest ladies store in town. And we took the second and third floor of the apartment and took the kitchen and put children's books and cookbooks, and took the den and put 7 or 8 bookcases, and had $8,000 worth of books. And 60 days later, I got a job at Poets Waiting Tables after I opened.
So you were doing both?
Yeah.
You had to do both to sustain.
And we had a spout for them for the restaurant in our upstairs bathtub.
And beer.
And beer.
I remember beer was flowing in the early days.
But we started doing poetry readings, and the Quarter was kind of a happening place before the flood of '79.
Didn't you have people like Eudora Welty drop in from time to time?
She didn't come till Highland Village.
So Highland Village came after the flood. I take it you were forced to relocate.
No, I got lucky. They were doing the plaza, and I decided to move my store from the Quarter to the plaza. I needed more space, and I moved in the fall of '07, December '07. So, and then moved to Highland Village and hired my first employee in April of '08.
We were talking before we started taping. I remember Tom and Valerie.
My first employee and my second employee.
Wonderful people, and you still stay in touch. I mean, these people are like family, I guess, to you.
Well, they helped create this world.
Which is what we're sitting in today. Now let's talk about where we are today in Banner Hall. When did Lemuria leave Highland Village and come to Banner Hall?
Roughly a decade later. We moved here in March, actually grand opening April Fool's Day of '88.
Any significance with that date?
Yeah, I thought it fit.
You know, I remember, and we've got a picture we're going to show a little bit later, but in 1997, when I had the Jackson Business Journal, I remember specifically you called me and you were worried because Barnes & Noble was opening its first location in Jackson on County Line Road. And you, I think, actually asked me to maybe consider writing a story, and I was happy to oblige, but boy, you've weathered the storm, haven't you, John?
Well, you know, we had 5 years, and the Books A Million came in, and then Barnes & Noble came in, and it was a different animal. You know, didn't know what to expect, didn't know how to compete, and you know, we figured it out, and then started growing again. Then Borders came in, and started growing again, and then the recession. So yeah, we're back kind of where we were when Barnes & Noble came in. So.
Well, and I want to touch on what you're doing to thrive and I guess in some cases survive in that recession. But I want to ask, in this recession, but I want to ask, tell us about some of the famous people who have been in Lemuria, who have signed books, who have sat here in the premises and graced the bookstore.
You know, I think of them more as friends, and the whole way of the store is that these people bring their lives into our store and make their words come alive. And you know, there's so many favorites. You know, of course, I love Willie and Eudora. They were just, you know, pals of the bookstore, local pals. Grisham, oh my goodness, couldn't care or love the store more than he does. Then I've got my favorite writer people that come, Jim Harrison.
Yeah.
You know, just my friendship with him is just a fortunate gift, and a true believer in the bookstore. Barry Moser, you know, it's countless, it's endless, all pals that identify with what we're doing and feel like they're part of it.
Well, let me ask you, are you comfortable with, or do you believe it when people tell you that you're one of the best known and best run independent bookstores in the U.S.?
You know, I don't know. I just am glad that we're still here and we're still trying to figure it out. You know, my whole goal has always been to try to give Jackson, you know, the very best bookstore that I could, you know, in my community that I grew up in. And no different than a lot of other people in their jobs, I don't think.
Well, what makes it different? I mean, what is the difference? I mean, besides being locally owned, which is important to us at Greater Jackson Business and on this show, but in your mind, is it the staff? Is it the service, selection?
I think it's everything. You know, I think, you know, your goal is to try to get the people in your community to feel that, you know, what you're doing is part of their lives, that matters to them. Or that's important to me, and I suspect and hope that it is to the people that come in the store.
But John, haven't you gotten the memo? People aren't reading anymore. I mean, you know, what Kindle, Amazon saying Kindle's outselling books. How are you?
I don't see that negative. I've had a lot of discussions. You mentioned Valerie, and Valerie and I have talked a lot about it. And I think it could actually be a good thing, that it could encourage more people to read with the Kindles and the iPods and all that stuff, that people will be reading more books and talking about more books, and then that will roll over and produce, you know, more people remembering and going back and sharing the physical experience. I think it could generate growth. I also feel like that as people that are not quite as dedicated to the book as part of their business, they're more dedicated to the commercial aspects of it, that, you know, some of my competition will fade away, and that the idea of being a independent store for this community will bring people to our community, because I think that a lot of people won't have that type of store. So, you know, it could be that as the industry changes, if it gets to where there are less hard book or physical book sales, then, you know, I hope to be the dinosaur walking around. And for my community, I surely hope that.
Yeah, but, you know, you are in the media age. We've talked about it, what we have to do now. I mean, you've got Oz, the great children's section, you've got the wonderful books, but you've got a Twitter account, you've got a Facebook page. Tell us a little bit about how Lemuria has adapted to the new media world out there.
We started work on our website about 12 years or so ago, and gradually expanded. But I think that, you know, that it's a lot of fun. I think that it's the way, it's what could very well make the bookstore even better in the years to come, that people that don't live here can still feel part of our book community. I think the authors that have been here are more inclined to feel part of our book community. I think a lot of people that come to the South or go to New Orleans or go to stop regularly once a year. And you know, they're really part of the bookstore's community, and of our First Editions Club. At least half the people are out of state.
And that's where people can look at rare first edition books, many that have been signed.
That's our book, sort of our Book of the Month Club, right. First edition. But,
right.
You know, most of its members are, half of its members are out of state. So that's people that, you know, are buying into what our community, book community is, in a sense. And I like that idea of virtually having visitors to the store, and the concept of the website is that we've always tried to make it like visiting the store.
John, in our remaining moments, 35 years, that's a long time for any business. Is there a moment that stands out in your mind, whether a special guest author or something a customer said to you? Was there a particular highlight, if you could pinpoint one moment in that illustrious 35-year history of Lemuria Books?
Gosh.
Besides this interview.
I don't know. Probably the one thing would be the night of our grand opening when we moved over here. We had lots of friends come and lots of authors, and it was the culmination of a lot of work. And I think we moved on the other side of the interstate, moved to an empty building, just broke all the rules to do what I thought needed to be done. And I guess to have gotten there and then seen if this concept would survive, I bet the ranch. Mm-hmm. And the ranch, we still got a few grazers here,
How many more years?
A lot of that depends on, how well the staff develops and takes stuff off of me. But I don't think that there's any reason to expect not to be here when I'm 75, which would be 50 years. I'd like to hope to be coming to work, a few hours a day when I'm 85 or 90 and sitting out front talking to books to people.
You heard it here first. One of the great businessmen in the state, certainly in Jackson, and we're very proud of him. Mr. John Evans, Lemuria Bookstore. John, my pleasure. Thanks for all the great books and great times.
Well, and just, it's always been a pleasure to see you in the store and talk books with you. And, it's funny, I've seen 3 generations in a lot of people now. I've got not just parents and children, but parents and children and grandchildren coming in the store together, and that's about the most rewarding thing.
And we will keep coming. John Evans. Stay with us on Greater Jackson Business Beat as we travel to Ridgeland, Mississippi to talk with Keith Kincaid and his fine men's clothing store.